A lot of the letters are funny in some
Yeah.
ways. You wrote one about a terrorist named E. coli.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you speak about that?
Yeah, well, there was a bacterial outbreak in Europe. Some people died. It was a virulent bacteria, and they gave it the name E. coli and then,
Yeah.
some numbers.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to get presidents, back to President Clinton, so shall we say redefine terrorism? I mean, if you're worried about the loss of innocent civilian life, you better worry about viruses and bacteria. And not just the ones that come from Africa or Asia. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of mutations. You were a scientist at National Institutes of Health.
Yes.
This is a scary thing. If we don't get ready in time, it could be like the influenza epidemic after World War I. And so I'm saying, how am I going to get to these people? So I decide to write a letter in the name of the E. coli. And the E. coli is sitting in a petri dish in Austria. And its life is very limited. They're going to come and get it because they've already analyzed it, has no more use. So this E. coli figures, I got to do something to redeem myself. So the letter in the book,
There's the bacteria speaking.
Return to Sender, made the case for the president to raise the priority of resource, focus, and concern to prevent epidemics, deadly epidemics all over the world. And there's no one better than the United States to confront that if we can get over the restriction of the word terrorist to a few gangs.
Yeah. I was at a few of the events that you've spoken about the book, and the one event I was at, the first one I think was at Politics and Prose, where you did the book launch there here in D.C. I wanted to ask you, I was really fascinated by how that talk went. It was a great talk, obviously, but the first question that you got was about why did you give the election to Al Gore in 2000? Have you ever been to an event where you've spoken where that question was not asked?
Very rare. It just hangs in people's heads.
And I thought your answers were so spot on and so direct. In fact, the audience there tends to be rather skeptical about, they're staunch Democrats, right?
Yeah, right, yeah.
But you got applause, serious applause. Please enumerate the answer because I think it's important for people to hear.
Well, because we can never tolerate political bigotry against third-party or independent candidates who exercise their constitutional rights. We all have a right to run for election. And if we all have a right to run for election, big guys, third parties, we all have a right to get votes from one another, which means we're either spoilers of one another or none of us are spoilers. I mean, why should the Green Party candidate be a third-class citizen? That's the fundamental reply. But the pragmatic reply, as you try to get through to these people, is if you ask Al Gore why he lost the election, he would say, well, one, I won the election. I won the popular vote. The Electoral College, antiquated, threw it into Florida. And then he'll say it was stolen from him in a whole variety of ways. In Florida, Secretary of State, Jeb Bush there, shenanigans, those of us remember all that.
And the Supreme Court, of course.
And then the Supreme Court. And he also would have been president if he just won one state, his home state of Tennessee, that he represented in the House, in the Senate, and his headquarters were there. So when you see sine qua non, 1, sine qua non, 2, 3, any one of which, everything else being equal, would have put him in the White House, why blame the Green Party? He doesn't blame the Green
also
Party.
250,000 Democrats voted.
That's right.
Voted Republican.
In Florida.
250,000.
250,000. That's right.
Now, how much was that election lost by?
537 before the recount.
537 votes.
Before the recount.
And 250,000 Democrats switched parties.
That's right.
Basically to vote. Also, Arkansas.
Yeah, that's right.
The state of when he was vice president to Clinton.
That's right.
That's Clinton's state.
That's right.
That went.
Yeah, because he didn't want
Republican.
Clinton to campaign. And so Clinton could have gotten Arkansas for him.
I mean, I'm just amazed at how many times people continue to ask that question.
Part of it is an alibi.
Yeah.
They go for the least worst. They so dislike the Republicans, they'll accept anything the Democrats offer. And I try to tell them, if you do that, you lose your bargaining power. The corporations are pulling on two parties 24/7, okay? So how do you, the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, which is becoming increasingly corporatized, militaristic, corporatistic, Wall Street, I mean, Hillary Clinton, militarist, corporatist. How do you have any pull on it? Well, not by saying, we're going to go for the least worst. Take me, I'm yours. I'm not going to put any pressure on you in April, May, June, July. I mean, they tell the pollsters exactly what the corporate Democrats want to hear, which is blanket support no matter what the Democrats will do that you don't like because the Republicans are worse. Now, every 4 years of that least worst mindset, and both parties get worse.